The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
We need a revolution. There's only one solution. I need somebody to show me the love. We need a revolution.
Informed Life Radio on 1150 AM KKNW and streaming to CHD TV, Rumble, and other platforms. We appreciate your tuning in today. I'm your guest host, Lisa Templeton, standing in today for Bernadette Pager. And also, I'd like to bring on our president, Bob Reynolds. Happy Friday, Bob.
Hi, Lisa. How's it going?
Hi, good. This hour of Free Speech Radio is brought to you by Informed Choice Washington, and I'd like to thank our loyal donors for supporting free speech on the airwaves. If you find that this hour of radio provides you value and food for thought, if you appreciate our efforts publishing a weekly Washington-centric public health Substack update, monitoring legislation, engaging with our lawmakers and policymakers, and educating the public, we ask that you pledge a single or recurring donation. Even $5 or $10 a month helps us to stay on the air here and continue our work to educate on issues that directly impact medical freedom. If every listener pledged just a modest amount of ongoing financial support, our impacts would grow exponentially. Please go to informedchoicewa.org and hit donate. We really appreciate and rely on our kind supporters. Another way you can keep this free speech on the air is to always start your Amazon shopping at the link on our homepage, informedchoicewa.org. And this gives us a small commission at no extra cost to you. We're not encouraging you to shop on Amazon, but when you do, we ask that you use that link. Thank you. And the views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of KKNW or CHD. The information provided is not intended to be medical or legal advice. Now, I would like to introduce you to a wonderful lady who lives clear over in Massachusetts. It's evening there where she's joining us. This is Julie Booras, and I've met her through Right to Refuse and some other medical freedom groups we're involved with nationally. Welcome, Julie.
Good evening. How are you? Thank you for having me tonight.
Yeah, today for us, tonight for you. Yes, thank you so much for being here, even though the subject is rather grave and disturbing, but I think it's important that people know about it. Can you tell us a little bit about who is Julie Booras, and tell us a little bit about your organization, Health Rights Massachusetts?
Sure. Yeah. So back in 2021, when COVID happened, and I think everybody can remember that pretty well, I co-founded Health Rights Massachusetts, which is now called Health Rights Massachusetts Advocacy. And I wanted to file bills that would protect our right to make our own health decisions for ourselves and our families, free from coercion, just like everybody else in the world. And so I did that in 2021 and 2023 and 2025. And it is getting a little exhausting because I live in Massachusetts, where it feels like doesn't really matter what you do, they're going to do what they want anyway. And I'm sure you guys feel the same in Washington. And so I have a radio show in my home state called Health Freedom Radio. And that's how I ended up researching this dark topic, I should say.
Yeah, maybe I can ask real quick, Julie, what is the legislation that you've been facing recently in Massachusetts, just to give the people in Washington here an idea of what else is bubbling up around the different states?
Sure. So I think in our state, we're seeing exactly what you're seeing in your state in California, and Maine, Vermont, New York, all the blue states. And they are, we passed legislation. Our governor filed legislation that says We no longer follow ACIP guidelines. We don't follow the federal CDC guidelines. We're going to make our own decisions in Massachusetts. She gave all the power to the commissioner of the Department of Public Health to make these decisions, along with his advisory panel of industry-funded trade organizations, including and most notably the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, which we know is being sued for federal racketeering right now. And apparently they're suing back in Massachusetts. I just learned about this today. I don't know that much about it, but AAP is filing a lawsuit, and I think it's happening here in Massachusetts.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Do you
So
know
it's just bananas, you know?
Yeah, we do have a bill like that is about halfway through the legislation. So in a
If
month,
they want to do it, they're going to do it. That's what I've learned here in Massachusetts. And all the screaming and hollering is really not going to change it if they really have their mind set on it. And since they did it in Massachusetts, there was no public even opportunity for input.
oh my.
Yeah, no, the governor just slapped it in. Well, they have a trick, and I'm sure they probably play it in Washington, where they take all the really unpopular pieces of legislation that the public doesn't want to pass, and they attach it to a large economic development bill, and then they just pass that. And so your bill, either policy gets stuck into these things, and they just get away with it because, we have a uniparty where all of our, we've just really one party here.
Okay. Yeah. So you're thinking of like an appropriations bill or a spending bill. They just
Yes. Yep.
I was going to ask. That was the other question I was going to ask. Was there funding attached to this because they're replacing all the federal agencies and committees that they were relying on in the past?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I assume there's more funding for them if they stick with what they're doing, which is probably why they're doing it. You know what I mean? Because I think it's big pharmaceutical companies are funding these initiatives and lining their pockets. So I think that's why they're doing it. I don't know. It feels just whatever that comes out of the Trump administration from the HHS right now, we do the opposite. So if they say no Tylenol, we say twice as much Tylenol. If they say, whatever it is they say, we say the opposite. So they say less vaccines, we say no, we want to have the same, and maybe we'll add another one. So they have just they're running roughshod, but I think the hope is that perhaps it's the people in those roles that are taking advantage, and just like they're cleaning house at the federal level, I hope to see some cleaning house at the state levels too, because so much is being uncovered in the world today. So who knows what's going to happen? I feel like we're on the verge of something. Don't you guys feel like something big?
Something's percolating.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the changes in the last year and a half, I mean, one change being RFK as the head of HHS. I mean, who would have thought? And you feel like there's more exposure going on, and the media is continuing to the legacy media is continuing to slant their reporting, not covering some things, over covering other things. It can't go on forever. This trend, and that's
something's got to give. And I think people are finally, I feel like here in Massachusetts, I know a lot of people are picking up and moving, but the ones that are staying, I think, are stepping up, running for office, saying, I've had enough. This is insane.
Yeah, the needle should swing back at some point.
I hope so. I do hope so.
Yeah. So thanks for that update from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, yeah. And of course, they're trying to remove our religious exemption and give minors consent to preventative care, including vaccines, without parental knowledge or consent. But they've been doing that to us for so long, and there's been an effort to fight that. So hopefully we can continue to, keep those bills from passing. It's much harder to, it's not that it's easy to stop a bad bill, but it's easier to stop a bad bill than try to pass a good bill in a state like Massachusetts. A huge opposition can help stop a bill. So that's what we hope. So if anyone out there knows anybody that lives in Massachusetts, make sure they get involved opposing those efforts.
Thank you.
That reminds me too.
Watch you.
Yeah. Will you give your, at the beginning of your radio show, you usually have a little intro in which you explain what you believe.
Yes, I learned that was a marketing thing I learned many years ago. Tell people what you believe. So, yeah, at the beginning of every show, we start off with, we believe all people have the fundamental, God-given, inalienable human right to make their own health decisions for themselves and their families, free from coercive tactics and bribery and mandates, and that no one should ever be forced into any medical product or procedure against their will in order to live, work, or go to school, and that your government, your Department of Public Health, your employer, your school have no right to force you to inject or ingest any substance, but especially not one made by man in a lab by a company who is free from all liability for injury and death. And I just hope that the fact that, just knowing that there's people out there that think they have the right to do that should have everybody very concerned. And I hope very motivated to get involved in groups like Informed Choice Washington and Health Rights Massachusetts and all the other great state groups across the land who are, motivated to get involved. So we start with that every week. I've been doing it for 100 weeks now. Same thing. I just did that without just off the top of my head.
Good.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
that's
good.
great. Music to my ears.
Yeah,
And
I like
that's
how you.
definitely the truth I want to stand up for.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell people where we're coming from. If they don't like it, they can change the channel. Right?
That's true. And I like how you say, don't just get mad, get involved.
Don't just get mad, get involved.
Yeah.
Yes, go to Health
gotta
Rights
get
MA,
organized
go to
and
Informed Choice
funded.
Washington. Yeah. It is true. Like, we need to get our acts together. We need to get organized. We need to get funded. Just like, the other side has so much money. And I don't think we need that level of funding, because I think we're smarter and we have heart and passion, and we really care about the future of our, children and our grandchildren. So I think we're like more motivated, and also I think more creative, because we haven't fried our brains with so many pharmaceuticals, I guess.
That's one advantage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, shall we delve into our topic today?
Sure. Embark on our dark journey. So I am by no means an expert on this topic. I do like to be very, I share that with people. I just did I started kind of realizing that it was language that was being used, I think, like human capital, things like that I keep hearing, where I just feel like we're being treated like a commodity. And they're like tagging cattle, like they're you know what I mean, like the tracking and tracing, and they talk about tokenizing all of our resources. And I just started to notice that there was kind of this whole industry built around the commoditization of the human body. And they're like, oh, it's life-saving, it's scientific, but it's honestly like just another marketplace and another way to make money off of us. And it was really a very dark rabbit hole. And it kind of started, you guys probably remember this, that sometime during COVID, but it was a story out of California where a gentleman went undercover, and he what it turns out is I have the name of the guy, David Daleiden from the Center for Medical Progress is what it's called. And he did a 3-year undercover investigation into basically the sale of, of abortions and what they were doing with them. And it really got covered up and hushed up. I'd heard about it, but then kind of, I guess they took it to court. Like Planned Parenthood sued them, but they lost. I think I'm remembering this correctly. And so it kind of backfired on them, because then all of the footage came out and people can go watch it. And I did. And that's what I think started me down this dark rabbit hole of, oh my goodness. And then just learning about what happens to the afterbirth, the placenta, the umbilical cord. That's $1 billion business. Then there's the blood and plasma. That's like money makers too. And they're not, what they say is it's against federal law. It's illegal to profit from the sale of body parts. aborted fetuses, of, you know, any fluids of your body. Like, you're not supposed to profit off them. However, they just changed the language, and that's how they get away with it. So they don't call it sales, they donate it, and then kind of everything around it they can charge for, like storage or shipping or processing. And so that's how they're making their money. So someone gets a donation, and then they have these procurement organizations that come in, and they're like a third party. So I started to realize that that was kind of a pattern throughout. Birth to death, they do it with, again, the you know, before birth with abortion, and then all of the afterbirth, and then the blood and the plasma, and then the vaccines, as we know, the forced medications, and then at the end of your life, your organs. And I know that we've all kind of grown up with this idea that, you know, especially with organ donations, it is, you know, so altruistic, and you really, and as a parent, I think we can all understand if anything ever happened to one of our children and we couldn't give them an organ and they needed one, we would want them to have one, right? But, you know, these things become a slippery slope, and they become corrupted by money. So, yeah, so it was really, again, it was really that David Daleiden video series, which I really recommend people go to their website. I kind of watched all of them. There was a lot, not all of them, but I watched many of them. And when I say they did an unbelievable job at their undercover work, it's impressive. They would pose as, oh, do you want to set up that clip and play it?
Yeah, Nathan has that clip ready, and this was one that you chose because you could especially hear the audio, but as you mentioned, there are many more.
Yeah, so what you're about to hear is an exchange at a trade show between, I think first you hear a doctor, Planned Parenthood rep, and then the undercover person is posing as a vendor for something called a tissue procurement organization. So they're that third party vendor that's going to come in and give you money for the tissue that you're taking from the abortions.
Yeah, money for the, I mean, not in exchange, but just they're going to fund the staging fee or shipping or something.
Right. So they're going to donate money, I believe, and then they get paid. So you can hear it. You can hear them explain how it all works. It is a little hard to hear, but you get most of it.
Okay, thank you. Let's ask Nathan to roll that. Ready, Nathan? Well, we might have to come back to that.
Okay.
Maybe Nathan can pop in when he's ready. He said he was ready, but
minimum of 50 cases.
But once again, for the listeners, though, I mean, you kind of dove into the different
services at Planned Parenthood New York City.
Oh,
Randy, our social worker, had told me about your program, which is something that we've been like floating and never sort of like got together.
okay.
So if I think it's like a win-win for everybody.
So can I ask you just a few questions
Yeah.
about volume, gestational age, do you ditch, blah, 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 all that?
24 weeks,
24.
incredibly high volume. Tuesday through Friday, we do probably a minimum of 50 cases, and then on Saturdays, usually closer to anywhere between 75 and 100.
Okay.
So we're very high volume, yeah. And of those you guys are only looking for second tries?
No, we have a wide range. Just
Okay.
depends on what the other side, the researchers want. So, are
we'll be
you
in touch.
open to? This is the main thing. Some people are not yet. A provider maybe being a little creative in their making sure that there's intact specimen, because that's what really the high dollar amount. We can pay incredible amounts for intact specimen.
Yeah. So, like, you mean completely intact D&E?
Not all.
Yeah.
But yes, but some.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like a case-by-case basis.
Exactly.
We just do whatever's safest and best. For the
Right,
most part.
right,
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, so if we can do an intact D&E, it's usually less traumatic for the patient. But
Right,
yeah, I don't know. I think amongst our providers to like encourage more intacts for this purpose, I think would be challenging. But we certainly do intact D&E.
Just that livers are, I mean, we could pay you $1,000 up to $1,500 for a liver.
Yeah.
Because that's in such high demand from our.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just great. And I think the fact that there's like for me, it's just like somebody to take it would be great. But I think financial incentive from you guys is going to be like to the people we have to get this approved will be very happy about it.
That's pretty chilling, huh?
Yeah.
And that's one of many videos like that. So that's kind of like, and the callousness with which they like talked about it in some of the other videos where they're like whining and dining in fancy restaurants, which is why it was harder to hear those. You got to kind of get online to listen to them like on a computer, but joking, talking about negotiating. There was one video where the woman said, well, the woman from the Planned Parenthood, well, what's a good amount? I don't want to lowball, but they were like negotiating, and she's like, 50, 75. And the woman said, oh no, we would pay you $100 each. And she, they just were joking. She's like, oh, well, I want to get a Lamborghini. So this is the conversation. Like you got to hear this stuff. And the way they talk about it, and I think it's the detachment from the reality of it is what kind of allows them to even get away with it and do that.
Do you think this has had an influence somehow that has trickled down to kind of the push for abortions and the sometimes even having them glorified, the T-shirts, people saying I've had 4 abortions, and you just wonder how much the cultural
it's a big money making business
based in that.
Yeah, it's a big money maker, and some people might say it's helping depopulation, but which it's part of that too. The numbers of people that I think the numbers of abortions that happen, I heard something like a quarter of a generation or something like that has been lost to abortion, which is just astounding to me. And they, again, they're doing this with they're switching language. So we're not selling it. It's medical research. It sounds super noble. And they say, well, if it's a reasonable cost, that's how they get away with whatever the reasonable cost is. What's that? And who decides that? Nobody decides that. They just, and so they're selling it without using the word sale. It's just, and we go along with it. And the thing is that people really, they just don't know what's happening. I'm sure if you said to the woman what they were going to do,
right?
Especially with, I think, when it comes to like the afterbirth and everything, and those tissues go to other industries. I mean, and that's the important thing. What are they selling them for?
Right. Yeah, I'd like to know that.
It's the vaccine research. It's pharmaceutical testing. It's cosmetics. It's even the food industry, which is gross. And what they do is they clone the cell line. So it's not like they're using necessarily the actual cells, but clones from the cells. And again, it's just astounding. And I think, if you just kind of move through like the years, one of the things that I found really, I think, alarming, having had a few children, I think you guys are both parents, when you go into a hospital, you sign a consent form. How many people read it?
And it might be on that little signature panel.
It might be on that little signature panel. And they say, oh, it's just waste, we're going to throw it away. But portions, and I'm quoting the actual one of the forms I found in Massachusetts, portions of the discarded tissue may be used for research or other activities that further the hospital's mission. That's anything. So that little sentence is gold for the biotech industry. And it basically allows the hospitals to hand over placentas, umbilical cords, stem cell rich tissues to private processors. And I think 99% of the time the mother doesn't realize it. She thought it was medical waste. And would imagine if they said that to you, like if they actually gave you truly like informed consent. Sometimes they're using it for like, beneficial things that can help people. They're using it to make products that help people. So I don't want to sound like I'm like, everything they do is evil, but at the same time, they're selling it. They're taking your body parts. They're not giving you a cut, and they're telling you they're throwing it away. But how much? I don't know. And the answer is I don't know how much or how often. Like, do they really, like, if it's good, they use it all, or they only really use it, a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But if they had said to the mother, well, you know what, we're going to take it. You have really great specimens, and we're going to sell it for thousands, if not millions of dollars. How would you feel as the mother? Like, we're selling your child's tissues, your tissues, to research or cosmetics or food industry or something. Where's the ethics, right? Where's the, I guess, with the abortion, someone's getting hurt. With this, no one's really getting hurt, but they're making money off you while they're charging you for it. It feels wrong. And what are they doing with your cells that could be totally unethical? We don't know. How often are they doing it? Always, sometimes. It's really, there's no way to really know like that stuff.
Right.
I'm only sharing what I can see on the surface, which is just actually, you know what I mean? What's happening. So they take the placenta, they take the umbilical cord. And so some of the things I've heard too is that's one of the reasons why they encourage so many C-sections now. So could be playing into it is because if you don't, so normally you would have your baby, you would deliver the placenta afterwards. It takes I think 20 minutes to an hour to naturally deliver your placenta. But if you do have a C-section and they can just lift it out, I think it's much more valuable and rich in stem cells. So it's worth more. I think that's true. I would have to get someone to verify that actually works in labor and delivery. If there's any whistleblowers out there.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like a call for whistleblowers, which is
what is really happening? How often? And
right.
And is it true that, it's worth more than, if you just lift it out? It kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. Tell us about placenta showing up in cosmetic products and facial creams.
Yeah. So it is used for some positive things. So just give me the positive first. It's used for things like amniotic, like grafts for wound care and regenerative medicine. But then, yes, it's used in anti-aging serums, cosmetics, and I think supplements too. And I did go try to see if I could find, were there really any cosmetics or companies that I could find that were really using human placenta in their products. And there is a med spa. They have a whole chain in New York that advertises placenta facials using human placenta extract, which is they ship in from Japan, where I guess it's legal for them to do that. It's not legal here, but
for
they
them
get
to
it
manufacture this product.
What was that?
For them to create these products from this placenta.
Yeah, I think you can't legally. You can't take human placenta. I think there's some supplements that take animal placentas and use them in the U.S., but human placenta, you're not allowed to use human placenta from the U.S. So they get it from Japan
in manufacturing.
They put it in their facials. It's called med spas New York. Anyway, you can find it very easily if you would like to go have a placenta facial with human placenta from Japanese women, I guess. So it all
imported and sold here,
right? But they only sell you it's all altruistic. It's all good, but at the same time, it's like, there's no informed consent. And it's kind of like, who owns your body, your cells, your tissues? I think these are like just ethical questions, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. And then, of course, you have your baby, and what's the first thing they do on the first day of life? So we have mandated, we have they're not really mandated vaccines. I think that is a real misunderstanding of most people. I really like to tell people there is no law that says you have to vaccinate your children. There are laws that say you have to vaccinate your children if you want them to go to school.
Right.
So, and I think that's why we're seeing just an explosion of homeschools and alternative forms of education, because we have to. So first day of life, you get a Hep B vaccine, right? What was that?
Yeah, people need to know that it's not actually a mandate, and that exemptions do exist in most cases. Hey, I want to back up a little bit about warning people about those electronic signature pads, and what is there a way around that?
So again, anything I say is not legal advice, but my understanding is if you're going into the hospital, you're going into a doctor's office, ask them to send it to you ahead of time, because sometimes they won't print it out for you right then and there. And especially if you're stressed or in a hurry or having a baby or whatever it is, you're not going to ask to print and see the forms. So, but what I think you can do is you can cross out what you don't agree with and sign it, I'm not sure
On
there's
the
a way
paper
to
form. On the paper form.
Yeah, sign the paper form, and you edit and cross out what you don't agree with, which is shocking to see what they're putting in some of the new consent forms. They're very, very broad. You're agreeing to biologics, which are vaccines. You're agreeing to let your organs be, and your tissues be sold. You're agreeing to let all of your medical information go through to the health insurance exchanges. When you agree to HIPAA, that's not really, people think HIPAA is privacy and the P is privacy, but the P, I think, is like portable. It has much more to do with what you are agreeing for your doctor's office to be able to share than it is about protecting your privacy. So they can't share it, just willy-nilly with anyone that asks, but they can share it because you're signing the HIPAA with the health information exchanges, and whether you like it or not, all of the public health data. That's how it all gets tied together. So I think it's really important for people to start asking them to print out the forms and reading them, and just talking to other people that are in the same boat too, like pushing back together, because I think they're just trying to cover their butts, but what you sign away and what you agree to is really excessive. There was one thing in the hospital one where you agreed that when you have a child, the mother's medical data would now go with the child, so that they had the history of the mom. But anything that the mom did could now maybe affect the child's life or how they move forward, or, if the mom, maybe had a drinking problem at one point, now they're going to say, they're going to hold that against the child in some way or use it. So that's just not maybe something that you want to share, right? But when you sign that blanket form, you're agreeing to that the mother knows now going to be. So they're doing a lot of things behind the scenes in those forms that you really need to know about, and you've got to say no.
Right. Yep. And people, you are capable of understanding these things. Don't let it overwhelm you. It takes some time and effort, and maybe talking to somebody else. Hey, maybe even running it through AI. I'm not saying to turn over your entire thought process, but don't be intimidated into thinking, oh, I would just need an attorney to sign, to counsel me on this. Okay, we're starting to run out of time, but can we talk about the massive commercial market that's built on blood products and plasma?
Sure.
How does that work?
Well, you know what? I want to make one more point about the vaccines, because I think it's really an important point to the whole big picture, which is, we're now you have kids, they're now mandated into this bevy of vaccines in order to go to school. Thank you to RFK Jr. and HHS. That number is now the CDC recommended is lower. It's anywhere from, I think, 19 doses to, on the high end, 80 doses. But I think what we're doing is we're creating this vicious cycle of sick kids. And then, so we're creating the illness through these injections that we're forcing on them. And not just the injections, all of the other pharmaceuticals, fluoride, pesticides, GMO foods. I mean, we could go on, all the toxins in the environment, right? But we're creating these sick people. You can argue intentionally or not intentionally, but then they're creating expensive drug solutions to cure us from our very own bodies and tissues and fluids and organs, which we unknowingly donate, and they make billions of dollars, and we pay for it. And so it's just like this. It's this huge marketplace. It's like one of those lies. It's like so big no one will believe it. Not like a lie, but like something that's happening that's so big that people are like, yeah, no, that's not really happening. But I think it is. Yeah. So blood and plasma was another rabbit hole. You think that when you go give blood, right, you give blood and it's going to be used for someone in surgery that needed it. But they're making money off of that too, hand over fist. And they are using it. They spin it up into all these other products. And then there's a whole plasma industry in and of itself that there's like 13 or more other products that just come from your plasma. But what they do is they give you, because the US, I think, is one of the only countries that you can compensate someone that gives blood for their time. So someone might come in and get blood and get $50, and they turn that $50 worth of blood into, and they think they're doing something altruistic, but they're turning that into, I don't know, could be hundreds, thousands of dollars. And sometimes it's the poorest people that are giving the blood because they need the money. So it's just very, I don't know if ironic is the word, but and so most of the $50 billion plasma donations come from the US. So we're feeding everybody else, right?
Oh, around the world.
Yeah. So if you think you're giving your blood and it's going to surgery and, you're doing a good thing, maybe it is, but probably not. I think it's just a fraction of blood.
We had Liz James of Blessed by His Blood on, and she told us quite a bit about the statistics of how much, like you were saying, actually goes to recipients as opposed to how much is sold for research. And it might even be sold for profit overseas, or that second part, don't quote me, but it's certainly not what we're made to think when we go to the Red Cross.
And again, where they're, it's like life-saving medicine, sure, but if we weren't making everybody sick in the first place, we wouldn't need this life-saving medicine. So it's a vicious cycle. Like, let's stop causing autism in children instead of spending all this money trying to fix autism in children. Like, let's just stop doing it, because we know how. I know we know how. And then at the end of life, they do the same thing with the organs. I don't know. In Massachusetts, there's a bill to pass medical aid in dying. Is there one like that? And what's this law? Do you know what the law is in Washington on that?
We already have that in effect, I believe. Bob, do you know?
I think Oregon and Washington were a couple of the earliest states to have assisted suicide.
How is it like? How's it working? How's it working out for you there? Because I've been,
that's one thing I haven't dived into. So,
so one of the clips we played and I sent you ahead of time when I did a show about this was what's happening in Canada, because they're way ahead of us. And there was
not in a good way.
What was that?
Not in a good way ahead.
Not in a good way, no. I found an investigative reporter who had been following it. His name is Dan Dix. He's on Twitter, and you can pretty easy to find. But so he's been following this whole thing, and I sent a clip to you. He basically, he sums it up so well. I'll just let the clip play if we can.
Okay, sure, Nathan.
All right, folks, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you is going to hit you like a freight train. Canada is a nation that is known for its compassion, its healthcare, and its promise of dignity. But unfortunately, Canada also has a very dark secret that has been swept under the rug for far too long. 90,000 lives. That's how many people have been killed through Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying program. Canada's euthanasia program is now the leading cause of death in some provinces. More than cancer, more than heart disease. In 2024 alone, nearly 5% of all deaths in Canada were from MAID. That's 1 in every 20 people who died choosing or being nudged into ending their lives. And don't think this is just about terminally ill patients anymore. Nope, it's much darker than that. People are being offered euthanasia for things like poverty, mental health, or just feeling like a burden. Veterans with PTSD offered MAID. Disabled folks just struggling to get by, MAID. People who can't afford housing, you guessed it, MAID. Doctors are under pressure to suggest MAID, even when the patients themselves don't bring it up. I know one guy who was offered MAID 3 times during a single hospital visit. He just wanted help, not a one-way ticket out. Here's where things get really wild. We're heading into the organ harvesting stage of assisted suicide. Canada is turning its assisted suicide regime into an organ donation supply chain. Canada is not just helping people exit stage left. They're now turning it into a one-stop shop for organ harvesting. And the system is slick. When a patient requests MAID, they are counseled on an organ donation during the process. Consent is secured, and then within hours of their death, their organs are harvested. Kidneys, livers, and hearts, all funneled into Canada's transplant system. It's efficient, calculated, and cold.
So they're just a little ahead of us. And this follows the same pattern. This time, instead of tissue procurement, they have organ procurement organizations. And they're that third party that comes in that you can pass money through without selling. It's like, and so tell me that they're not making billions of dollars off organs. I mean, and we're worth so much more to them in pieces and parts,
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah, because then we're not a draw on the system. Instead, we're a resource.
They're making
resource.
a ton of money. Someone's making a ton of money, and yeah, exactly.
Do you see what risks do you see for vulnerable populations, elderly, disabled, isolated? When
I think all of those people. We don't know how far they'll take it here. I assume it's going to start really slow, and it'll be just people that are really at the end of their lives, and that's probably how it started in Canada. But now we see, you're depressed, and young people too. I think that's what's kind of so crazy. And how now they're just it's becoming almost normalized. There was a woman, she's another woman on Twitter. She's vaccine injured. I think her name is Kayla Pollock. I was just trying to remember it. Kayla Pollock. So she was severely vaccine injured in a wheelchair from the COVID vaccine. She's been offered MAID 3 times. She just wants help, like the other guy. Like, we just want help. But can you imagine young people who are depressed and just going through a tough time, or just being like, I want MAID, and then we fast track you into the organ donation track.
Yeah.
And again, it's just how many ways can they make money off us? It's pretty.
And I'm sure the younger people's organs are probably bring more on the market. I wanted to point out, I had heard Dr. Heidi Klessig, who's a retired anesthesiologist. I heard her on a podcast years ago, and I think she's also been on CHD TV, and she discussed abuses in organ donation practices, not even with respect to MAID. She wrote a book called Harvesting Organs and Cherishing Life, based upon her rude awakening as a practitioner. And I'm just going to share the screen of, there's a YouTube video that you can watch of her interview.
Didn't HHS just...
That I realize are...
Is that not working?
I'm going to bring it. Yeah, go ahead and say about the HHS. I wanted to mention that too.
Yeah, so I think in July they started to kind of reform the organ transplant system. I don't really know what came of it. It was kind of like it just was announced. But one of the statistics was they investigated the procedures. There was 351 cases they examined, and at least 28 may not have been dead. And I would imagine it's even more than that.
Whoa.
So, and the other thing, what really got my goat about this whole thing and how it, just really, they do not have our best interest at heart. And it's not purely altruistic, so they're, they make a lot of money when you die and they're kind of rushing you into that. But during COVID in Massachusetts anyway, there were people that were not allowed to get an organ transplant unless they got the vaccine. So
Right.
that doesn't make any sense at all. Like the last thing you would probably want to do before you're about to get a major surgery and get cut open is to take a toxic product into your body. But what really bothered me, and I did have organ donor on my license because I thought it was the right thing to do because, I don't need them anymore and, someone else can live on. But they won't give this person who's not vaccinated their transplant. But if I was in an accident and they wanted my organs that were not vaccinated, they would gladly take them and make tons of money off them, but they wouldn't give me an organ transplant if I needed one. Nope. I'm out. That was the moment it's unbelievable. That was the moment that I decided I'm going to take myself off that list because I don't trust the thinking of these people for, enforcing these shots on people when they really don't make any sense and could really hurt them. And then that they would not let me have one, but they would take, like, all of these things just made me realize. And then, knowing that some people maybe are not dead and they're taking their organs. So I've heard a lot of stories like that where, not a lot, but a few, where the person could hear it and they were trying to tell them that, they weren't dead and they, and that sometimes those lives were saved. And I've heard some really uplifting stories like that. But
oh, that's good.
That's scary.
That Dr. Klessig goes into the rude awakening when she was training, I think as a resident, and was instructed to go give a patient who they were getting ready to do the organ harvesting. You see, the definition of clinical death has changed over the years to enable this to occur.
Right, brain death.
Because they can't they can't actually take the organs from a completely dead person. So she was instructed to go give this patient some kind of a pain killer. And she asked, well, isn't he dead? Why would I need to do that? And that was kind of her awakening moment. And I think she might go into that in her book. Bob said he found in the RCW, what is it, Dignity in Dying?
Death with Dignity Act, which was put into effect in March 2009.
I wonder how it's like working out for people.
Yeah, well, now you've got my radar pinging.
Well, it's so we were talking about this before, is like, how could this be abused? Like, there's a lot of ways it could be abused, like you're not really dead or you're depressed or whatever, all of these things that can lead you to the organ harvesting. But what about people whose children maybe, want their inheritance or they have a parent with Alzheimer's or, and they're the medical proxy? Like, where is the line? There's so much room for abuse that it scares me. That's all. I mean, I kind of understand people that are really miserable and suffering. I mean, I get both sides of it, but I just think if we start passing laws to allow it, we're going to follow Canada real fast.
Yeah, so the Washington law looks pretty much like Maine in some ways. I don't know how it's pushed very much, but you need to be 18 years of age here in Washington as a resident. You must make and communicate an informed decision to healthcare providers. and you must be diagnosed with an incurable or irreversible disease that will produce death within 6 months. So the 6 months thing is pretty wide open. There have been a lot of people who've been given some bad diagnoses, and they end up possibly recovering or lasting much longer.
Right. But in Canada, you don't even have to have something that's terminal. You can just be PTSD or depressed or what was that?
Yeah.
Just raise your hand.
Oh.
I had a really bad day at work.
You did?
Yeah. I think I have a program that will help you, Bob.
Just move north of the border. I can not have another bad day of work.
Right. Yeah. We'll take care of that for you. Well,
but
Julie, when people hear all of this,
what was that?
How do you,
like, what do we do now about this information?
It's so dark and overwhelming. What,
it is a lot.
Don't just get involved.
I think it's just awareness. I mean, some of it, you kind of can't stop medicine, and we're never going to stop pharmaceutical companies from being pharmaceutical companies. But I think just awareness around it, what happens during the birth process. I just recently heard a story where somebody delivered, they had a midwife. The midwife walked out of the room and the doctor walked in, and she had just finished delivering 5 minutes earlier and decided that he was going to deliver his placenta by hand, her placenta by hand. And she ended up having surgery and, bonding and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you got to ask yourself, why would he do that? And is it because it was somehow going to be worth a lot more if he got it? I don't know. These are the things I don't know, but these are the things that I think people need to be aware of, be careful of, be paying attention to. And I always say, if I was going to have kids again, I would totally do a home birth. But the 30-year-old me that was having children never would have. So, I want to impart that wisdom along to moms, is like, look into some alternative and more holistic approaches to birth, because the way they're medicalizing birth it just, I don't know, makes me sad. Sad.
So you're not an organ donor anymore, and do you donate blood?
Nope. I would donate blood if somebody needed it, and I'm not heartless. But if they're just going to spin up my blood and sell it for profit, like, no thanks.
Right.
Yeah, and I've become a little more proud of my pure blood at this point. It's like, you want my blood? You're going to be paying me for it big time, because this is what I hope is untainted blood.
Yeah, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other day, talking about you had that the blessed by his blood on, but the blood topic is really important. Yeah.
Well, we have to wrap it up now. Thank you so much, Julie. We sure appreciate you coming on and sharing your research. And I'd like to thank Bob. Great to see you. And thank our producer, Nathan Miller, for all his work behind the scenes. And thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on Informed Life Radio on 1150 AM, KKNW and CHD TV. This is your guest host, Lisa Templeton, and Bob Runnels signing off for the week. Bernadette will be back soon.
Informed Choice Washington is a nonprofit organization that advocates for healthy immunity, medical freedom, and fully informed medical consent. The right to make medical choices without coercion is fundamental to our civil liberties and a basic principle in all human rights declarations. To learn more, tune in each Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. to an Informed Life Radio and visit the website informedchoicewa.org. It's time to take a stand for medical freedom. Go to informedchoicewa.org today.
Did you know that solutions containing iodine can inactivate viruses in the nose and throat in 15 seconds? And hydrogen peroxide can do it in under 30 seconds. Decades of studies, including many conducted during COVID, have shown that properly prepared and used nasal spray and gargling solutions can reduce your risk of infection, reduce viral load, reduce symptoms, and reduce transmission of viruses. To learn more, go to healthyimmunitynow.org and check out the EFU Challenge. Why spread fear and infection when nature provides solutions? Go to healthyimmunitynow.org today.
The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.